This is incredible.
An Ontario County nonprofit.
Overlook Horizon high-altitude balloons.
3, 2, 1, launch.
Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. Welcome to another attempt here today. Hopefully we can get this rocket off this morning. Today is Thursday, October 1st, 2020. It is 8:50 in the morning Eastern Time here where I am on the East Coast of the United States. And hopefully you're here live joining us here for our watch party for Starlink 12, that's what I'm calling it, Starlink 12. We'll talk about the naming thing here in a minute. There's a bit of confusion, but if you're not watching it live, if you're watching the replay, check down below. I'll put timestamps in the description below so you can skip ahead to all the good parts. Who am I kidding? They're all good parts here, right? Right? I say that every time, but it's the truth. Anyways, about the naming structure, we didn't mention this last time. We had a scrub last time. Let's talk about last time first before we get into the naming thing. We had a scrub last time, scrub for weather. We had bad weather last time, cloudy weather. If you look at our weather here today, it's not exactly fantastic weather. Cool color, actually. But it's we still got some issues with clouds today. Fewer clouds, less issues. Less? You know what I'm saying. We're having fewer cloud issues. But still a concern for today, so we're going to see if we get through that. Now, as far as the naming structure goes, a lot of people, they want to fight me in the comments over this. I call it Starlink 12. Really, it's a big, long name. It's Starlink V1.0-L12, which means this is the launch of the version, or this is the 12th launch of the version 1.0 satellites. We did have another launch, a version 0.9 set of 60 satellites that went up. Some people call that launch 0, like me. Some people call that launch 1, which would make this Starlink 13. I call that one launch 0 because that wasn't our operational satellites yet. So I'm calling that launch 0. Could also be the software engineer in me. I like to start things at 0. That's what we do as software engineers a lot of times. But so that's how we get to Starlink 12. Fight me in the comments. I don't care. Hey, GVA Morning Show, thanks for the super chat. Can we get any rocket off the ground? I know why you didn't stream last night. You knew Delta would scrub. I'm not gonna lie. It does factor in just a little bit. Yeah, the GVA is talking about the NROL 44 mission from United Launch Alliance, the National Reconnaissance Office secret payload that is launching on a Delta IV Heavy, or is supposed to. Someday it will, but we have not. They how many times have they scrubbed now for that launch? A couple. And I saw, sidetrack onto the ULA launch, I saw the Rofi Sparker. It looked like the Rofi Sparkers went off, but then Tori Bruno tweeted out that the Rofi Sparkers did not. Those little sparks at the bottom of the Delta IV Heavy that ignite any extra hydrogen that might be around in the area, so you don't have a big boom. Because remember that you've got, that's a hydrogen-fueled rocket. But anyway, usually when those Rofis ignite, it's a longer turnaround time if they have to scrub. But he said in a tweet that they did not ignite. But to my eyes, it looked like they did. Okay, so let's go back to Starlink. Let's talk about what we got today here. So obviously, like I said, our big concern for today is going to be the weather. Here's a live look at Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A, the big historic Launch Complex 39A is where Space Shuttle launched from, Apollo launched from. The big pad, this is also where Falcon Heavy launches from, and where Crew Dragon launches from. SpaceX does have other launch pads. They got another one here at Kennedy Space Center, a little bit further south. Oh, you can see a Coast Guard helicopter in the back there. It's kind of cool. Keeping our wayward boats out of the area, making sure nobody's coming through. But yeah, so this is the big launch pad. They have another one that's a little bit further south at the Kennedy Space Center. Actually, it's not at Kennedy Space Center. It's at the Cape Canaveral, I guess it's Space Force Station now. But it's only like, what is it, like a mile south of here? So it's on Cape Canaveral. Either way. But that's their other pad there. Cannot launch Crew Dragon or Falcon Heavy. And then they also have one on the West Coast at Vandenberg Air Force Base. That one also cannot launch Crew Dragon or Falcon Heavy. So this is the only pad that can do it. Also has that pretty awesome decked out fixed service structure there. The big black tower with the black cladding on there and the crew access arm. Love the look of it. It looks very futuristic. So let's jump into weather at the top of the hour with Tori here. And we're going to take a look. Where is my weather? There it is. I got too many windows open. So our main concern today really is going to be clouds. Same thing we had the other day. Cloud coverage is going to be the big issue. So wind speeds, not bad. 5 mile per hour at the Cape here. This is ground level winds. If we bump up to our upper level winds, we do get a little bit higher, but this is not crazy. You can see up here is kind of the bulk of it at 80 miles per hour. Down here at the Cape though, 58 miles per hour. I mean, higher than ground level winds, but not a huge issue. Nothing I would be concerned about. And again, it pops up and over those winds pretty quickly. So really what you're looking for is wind shear. So what you would not want to have is really fast winds going one way and really fast winds going completely the opposite way, where you've got that shearing effect there where those two meet. But so wind, not really much of a concern. We look at the radar here. Radar, not too much of a concern either. You got just kind of a couple tiny little bit of rain here, but nothing really big on the radar. Clouds is the big thing, although this radar map doesn't really show clouds so well. You can see we've got some cloud coverage here. Here's 100% cloud coverage, which would be a little bit thicker clouds. Here you got 0%, or I'm sorry, 100% cloud coverage. That's just the coverage area. It doesn't necessarily mean thicker clouds, but down here you've got 10%, 20%. This is more like scattered clouds. What I was going to say about thicker cloud coverage is this: you don't really have a great way of showing thick cloud coverage here in this map here. Oh, that music all of a sudden got really loud. So that's really what they're concerned about. If we look at the 45th Space Wing and their weather forecast here today, the probability of violating weather constraints is 30%, meaning we have a 70% chance of go. Better than last time. Last time we were 60% go, 40% no go. Today we're 70% go, 30% no go. But again, the issue is pretty much the same: thick cloud layer rule. We can't launch through thick clouds. So that's what they are watching again here today. And if you look, we were looking for this the other day. I couldn't remember where I had seen it. But here's our window here at the top. So the window to launch is 9:12 to 9:33. It's a short window, but it's not instantaneous. But for all intents and purposes, today, and as of right now, it is instantaneous, because once they commit to fueling, which they have already done, they do that about 40 minutes prior to launch. And if you look at our countdown that's up here in the corner, we're about 18 minutes prior to launch. Once they commit to launching to fueling the rocket, that's it. It turns it into an instantaneous launch window, because if they have to scrub for any reason and they have to recycle the count, there is not enough time to do that recycle and still fit it in to this window. So there is a window they could adjust all the way up to prior to starting fueling. So if prior to fueling, they were like, you know what, we could push it out and wait until the end of the window here. Maybe instead of launching at 9:17, we'll launch it right at 9:33. They could do that. Once they start fueling though, that's it. Instantaneous launch window now. And so that's where we're at. So now we are instantaneous at this point. And so the reason for that, we talked about this a little bit the other day as well, but the main reason for that is because they're trying to hit a very specific corridor, a very specific orbit in space for coverage. So these are all the Starlink satellites that are in orbit right now. This is their orbital paths. You can see here in this blue web looking thing on our Stuff in Space map. That blue web is providing coverage to people on Earth. So obviously you need them to be spaced out and in a very precise orbit so that they can weave this web and make sure that satellites are in the proper position and you have coverage. If you don't, then your whole constellation is screwed up, and you got satellites where they're not supposed to be. They do have onboard thrusters, but you don't really want to use those onboard thrusters to make major orbital changes if you don't have to. I mean, much better to have the rocket do that, save your fuel for on-orbit maneuvers, extend the lifetime of the spacecraft or the satellite while it's up there, so you don't use up all your fuel just trying to get it in the right spot. Save that fuel so you can extend the life. You can do things like avoidance maneuvers. They do have avoidance capabilities so they don't crash into other satellites as well. That's an important thing. So they've got capability to avoid stuff. They do have to do some orbit raising anyways. So the orbit that they get dropped off in by the Falcon 9 is not their final orbit. They will raise their orbit themselves using their onboard thruster systems. So they've got to do that anyways. So that's the idea. But you can see how they're really starting to weave this web here and get some pretty decent coverage, and that's why they're able to do beta testing, which is what they're at now. Now we're about, what I looked it up the other day. I wanted to say we're at like 746 satellites in orbit, but 700-ish. I think it's 746, 748. So that's roughly where we're at. 700 and something. It gets harder to keep track of once we start getting more and more satellites up there. And we're launching another 60 today. Now, they said about 800 or so gives them like partial operational capacity for like the US and Canada. So we're almost there, and that's why they've actually started the beta testing. Then the next step after that is getting up to 4,000-ish, which is pretty decent coverage across the globe. And then the next step after that is 12,000-ish, which is full coverage. And then after that, they're even targeting potentially 30 or 40,000, which is like super coverage, which is like different tiers of speeds, and you could have a even lower Earth orbiting constellation that maybe they charge more for, and there's all kinds of things that they're planning on doing. But right now we're at 700. We're nowhere close to 30 or 40,000. So we got some time. What that does bring up a concern for, and what we talk about every single time they do one of these Starlink satellites, is astrophotography. Is this going to ruin the night sky? Are you going to look up and just see bees a-buzzing in the sky with satellites flying over like crazy? But as of right now, no. And I don't think that's really going to be the case. They are putting sun visors on them to reduce the reflectivity of the satellites, to try to make them less visible in the night sky. They are very aware that some of the earlier versions were a bit bright. So they're trying to limit that down a little bit and reduce the reflectivity. It's not going to be an issue for, even once you get up to 40,000 satellites. It's not like the movie WALL-E, where you're trying to, launch into space and you gotta have a plow on the front of your spacecraft to push satellites out of the way so you can get through. We're not at that point yet. It's like, there's plenty of room up there. It's huge. You get a huge amount of space up there. So it's not really an issue for trying to get to space, but it is an issue potentially for astrophotography, whether it's amateur or even researchers trying to study the night sky. All that's an issue. So they're working on that. All right, before SpaceX goes live here, we kind of we powered through our spiel. Oh, let me tell you one more thing, and then I'm going to go to your comments. Just real quick, we'll take a look at the hazards map here by Raul on Twitter. This is the direction that we're traveling here today. So you can see we've got the drone ship out here, which is the blue pin, and the fairing catcher ships, which is the green pin out here. So they're going to do a drone ship recovery and a fairing catch attempt. We're heading in a northeastern direction, and then the second stage is actually going to deorbit. What is it going to do, Tori?
It's going to deorbit.
There he is. Come back. Say it again.
It's going to deorbit.
There's a little delay on the button push.
Deorbit.
Right. Deorbit.
Deorbit.
Yeah, deorbit. That's what I said. It's going to deorbit, and otherwise known as deorbit. And the pieces, the debris, is going to splash down right here in this area off of Australia there. So, let's get to a couple comments, see what's up with you guys, see what's happening.
It's going to deorbit.
We already said that. We said that, Tori. Come on. All right. Holy smokes, a lot of comments went by. Hey, TJ, I need more space. A thought I had to help them get more funding, they should let people purchase naming rights for each satellite. Even at $1,000 per satellite, it could make an impact on their bottom line big picture. That would be pretty awesome. It would be awesome. I mean, this whole bit with commercializing space, I mean, they can do stuff like that. Imagine NASA doing something like that. I know there's always been a joke. I forget who tweeted it out. It might have been you, TJ, but somebody tweeted out a picture of a Falcon 9 rocket with like a big Mountain Dew logo all over it with a payload fairing because Jim Bridenstine loves Mountain Dew. Imagine if NASA just started selling naming rights to rockets and payload fairing just had, big corporate logos on them or something like that. It would just to help reduce the cost. I mean, to be perfectly honest, like, it doesn't bother me. If it means we can launch more rockets, I'm all for it. Let's do this more. Who feeds you all this info? It's just right here. It's the Space Lobster that does it. Ask Tim Dodd. He'll tell you it's the Space Lobster.
Space Lobster ate the T-Tub. That's the answer.
See, I told you. Okay. It's already ruined the night sky. Too many satellites floating up about there. I mean, it's up for debate. I mean, I don't know if I would agree that it's ruined the night sky at this point. It's been problematic in the past. Let's see. I don't know. So, Hamad said, what's the lifespan of each Starlink satellite? I don't know the exact lifespan, but I would imagine they're supposed to be like 10 to 15 years. Usually that's what they would target for satellites. I don't know if they've actually published that, though, the actual lifespan. Did we? I just felt my phone vibrate. Does that mean, SpaceX is live here. All right, so we're going to talk more. I'm going to switch over to SpaceX here so we can listen in at what's happening with them. And I will, we're going to talk more. We've actually got a long period of time before or in between launch and deployment. And so we'll talk about Starship later. We're going to talk about comments. We're going to get your comments. I'm going to go back through and get them. So if I miss them, we'll get to them again. So let's jump over. We'll listen into SpaceX and then make sure you stick around so that we can chat it up in between about some more stuff. All right, let's listen in.
Liftoff on Friday evening.
We need more volume than that.
Not something you get to see every day, and really excited to see two of our boosters ready and raring to go for their respective missions.
Look at that.
Now, to date, we have launched more than 700 Starlink satellites to orbit. Starlink, if you're not familiar, is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote and rural areas where connectivity is limited and sometimes completely unavailable. Now, today's mission will be a little bit longer than our recent Starlink missions. We will be igniting our second stage's engine twice and deploying the stack of 60 Starlink satellites about an hour into the mission. By deploying our satellites after 2 burns instead of 1, it allows us to get into a circular orbit, and that helps the Starlink satellites get to their final intended orbit about 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface a little bit faster. Now, at this point, T-minus 9 minutes and 30 seconds-ish, we have all systems go for an on-time liftoff this morning. Now, on your screen is a live view of Falcon 9. That's our 2-stage launch vehicle. It stands about 70 meters tall. That's greater than the wingspan of a 747 aircraft. And today's mission will actually mark the 3rd flight for this particular booster. It previously flew on our Demo 2 mission at the end of May, which sent NASA astronauts Bob and Doug safely on their journey to the International Space Station. We recovered it and then flew it again in July for the Anasis 2 mission, and today it'll be flying its 3rd mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle that's covered in soot is what we refer to as the first stage, and its job is to accelerate the launch vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space with the help of 9 Merlin 1D engines that it has at the base of the rocket. Now, today we are attempting to recover this first stage on our drone ship named Of Course I Still Love You. That drone ship stationed off the east coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. The first stage is designed to be reflown 10 or more times with minimal refurbishment between flights. So we'll be excited to get that first stage back, hopefully later on in today's mission.
Seems like a very zoomed in view there.
Atop the first stage, we have the black carbon fiber inner stage. And then on top of that is actually the Falcon 9's second stage. It has a single Merlin vacuum engine that's actually hidden from view in that inner stage that I mentioned previously. And the first and second stages, after they ignite, that Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and separate, will ignite and carry the Starlink stack of satellites into circular orbit, expecting that to happen about 2.5 minutes into flight. Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since about T-minus 35 minutes. Now, as a reminder, we use rocket-grade kerosene, or rocket propellant 1, RP1 is our fuel. And we also use super chill liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer to power Falcon 9. Currently, RP1 and LOX are both nearly fully loaded on both the first and second stages. And liquid oxygen will continue to be topped up until the final minutes of the countdown. At the very top of the rocket, you have this large nose cone structure. That's what we refer to as our satellite fairing, and inside that is the stack of 60 Starlink satellites, safely enclosed. The fairing protects the satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during the ascent portion of the mission. And once we reach the vacuum of space, we actually don't need those fairing halves. And so we'll jettison them back to planet Earth as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. Now, one of the fairing halves today is brand new, but the other provided or supported 2 previous Starlink missions, one in May of 2019 and another in March of this year. And we will be attempting to recover both the fairing halves today using our recovery ships Mystery and Mischief. About 2 minutes before the fairing halves are expected to land, the recovery team will conduct a go-no-go poll for the catch. And if the weather cooperates, weather is an important factor, then hopefully we'll see those 2 fairing halves recovered. But weather, really important for the sea states of the recovery boats, as well as how the fairings return to Earth on parachutes. And so we'll be keeping a close eye on that.
Usually
Speaking
that's
of the
about
weather,
45 minutes after launch is when they try to attempt that catch. So we may see it today, or at least get some sort of update on the stream, because the deployment is not until an hour after launch. So we're going to be here the whole time.
Anything on the nets? So the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range all looking good for an on-time liftoff just under 5.5 minutes from now. Now, as mentioned on our last Starlink webcast, the first phase of testing with our private beta program is well underway. In fact, earlier on this week, we heard from emergency responders in Washington State, and they shared their experience using Starlink. In the wake of the wildfires that had devastated areas of the state back in August, first responders have been using Starlink for their purposes and also to help bring the residents of Malden internet service while they rebuild their community. Now, Richard Hall, the head of Washington State's Military Department IT division, was quoted saying he's never set up any tactical satellite equipment that has been so quick to set up and anywhere near as reliable. Malden is located about 35 miles south of Spokane, Washington, and it falls within the northern latitudes of the planet, an area that our satellites currently service.
That's pretty awesome.
Now, the way that emergency responders deployed Starlink is the way, and in fact representative of how Starlink works best in remote and rural areas where internet connectivity is limited or unavailable. Our Starlink network is still in its early stages, but as the network grows, the coverage will also continue to grow. And we're continuing to target a public beta opportunity before the end of the year. So we'll share more information as we get closer to that. If you're interested in the updates when that time comes, head on over to starlink.com and sign up for updates. So about just under 4 minutes to go until liftoff. Falcon 9 moving into the final stages of countdown. At this point, the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with RP1 fuel and liquid oxygen as our oxidizer. The super chill liquid oxygen is actually what's creating those white clouds that you're seeing on the second stage there. That's from the liquid oxygen. We have a little bit of venting happening there, so as we continue to top up those tanks. And when that comes into contact with the moist, warmer ambient air of Florida, it causes water vapor to condense and actually literally form clouds. So coming up here, we expect to have prop loading complete T-minus 3 minutes on the first stage, second stage shortly after at T-minus 2 minutes.
All right, and this is the big pad that has very good
Once we get to T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will transition into startup. That's where the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers will take over the launch countdown all the way through the rest of the mission. And then shortly after that, at about T-minus 45 seconds, the launch director will give a go, no-go poll for launch. Excuse me, his go for launch. So far, Starlink payload continuing to look healthy. Falcon 9 team is not tracking any issues.
Let's see the
Weather also continuing to look good.
water flowing out of the water tower there. That's how you know it's full. It starts overflowing. That's normal. They got some pretty good pad mics here. Now we might go, I'm considering
Just passed through T-minus 2 minutes.
we might go to members only chat here in a minute.
There's call out for LOX load complete.
When
so
actual
we're
launch
finished.
starts, just for a
Loading
minute here.
propellants onto the launch vehicle, first and second stages. We'll expect to see some venting from the transporter erector, that truss structure next to the rocket. That is just to clear out the lines, so any liquid oxygen in those lines being vented out, and then again forming clouds with the moist Florida atmosphere. And then coming up in about 20 seconds, expect to see Falcon 9 go into startup. We'll listen for the launch director's go.
Here we go. This is about, we were no-go for weather now, but look at, we can see blue skies here now. Now we're looking good. I like it.
Again, this is pad 39A, so that black structure next to it, not too long ago had astronauts in it. No people on the pad, of course, today.
We should get a go.
Go for launch.
There it is. We're go for launch.
So with that, all systems go for launch. Launch team is go for launch. Why don't we listen in to terminal count for Falcon 9 liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna get my stuff. Out of the way here. 20 seconds. We should be good. Coming in, we're gonna go members only mode here for just a minute, and then we'll switch back in just a couple of seconds here. We'll get, and then I also want to get to your comment. We'll switch back to normal chat mode here, just a minute or two after launch, and then we'll get your comments after launch, because we got a long period of time that we'll have to chat. We'll have to chat it up and discuss. We got things to talk about, like, uh-oh.
So it looks like we had the clock stop at T-minus 18 seconds. We're going to check in with the launch team, see what we can learn from this. Again, during this portion of the mission, Falcon 9 is fully autonomous, and it's monitoring the health of a number of its systems. So this could be completely normal. But we're going to check in with the teams.
This is LB on countdown. We've had an abort to a out-of-family ground sensor reading.
So
I didn't even
heard over the nets that we aborted on an out-of-family ground sensor reading. So a number of ground sensors in the pad area that we use to monitor our ground systems, make sure everything is healthy before launch. I'm going to continue to listen to the nets, see if we can learn any more about today's abort.
Oh man, I peeked down at the clock. I was like, wait, we should have launched by this point. It seemed like a really long period of time. And we got another scrub. And there's going to be too little time left in the window in order for them to try again. I mean, we only have, what do we got? 10, 11, 10, we got 14 minutes in the window, and they got to recycle, figure out what happened, and then would have to start the count at 15 minutes. So there's not enough time to do a recycle today. So this is gonna be it. This is gonna mean it's a scrub. It's interesting that they didn't just... that we didn't hear a hold call, but it was an automated scrub, it sounded like. So from one of the ground system, the computer system actually scrubbed the abort or stopped the count, not an actual controller. So usually those final seconds, that's where it's all in the automated system. The final terminal countdown there is controlled by the computer systems, and so that would be looking at all the sensors. It sounded like there was some sort of ground support equipment that they said. I missed when I was trying to figure out. I got really confused. Why? I was totally not expecting that. So I missed what he said exactly. Something about ground support equipment. James on Facebook says, my sources tell me that it was the flux capacitor was loose. You might be right, James. We got to get the doc out there to take a look at it. You hate when your flux capacitor gets loose. Nobody likes that. So We Be Good said, I heard nothing on the Starlink mission control audio channel. Yeah, because this was an automated scrub from the computer system, it likely would have been, not a surprise is probably a strong word, but a little bit of a surprise to the controllers because they...
Now, as you just heard on the countdown nets, or if you're just joining us, we actually had an abort on the pad associated with an out-of-family ground sensor reading. Prior to that, the countdown was proceeding nominally. Now, keep in mind, the purpose of countdown is to help us catch potential issues prior to flight. There's 1,000 ways that a launch can go wrong and only one way it can go right. And given that we're overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or the vehicle sees anything that looks slightly off, we'll stop the countdown. Now, overall, the vehicle does appear to be in good health, but that will end our launch attempt for today. Our next launch opportunity is still pending, but we hope you'll join us again for the next attempt. Please keep an eye out on our social media accounts for more information on that. Until then, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time.
Well, all right. That's it. That was very anticlimactic, wasn't it? That was, yeah, what a bummer. I was ready for launch. I was ready to go. I thought we were in for it. Weather was looking good. We had the go from the LD, the launch director, and then nothing. So about 18 seconds they held the count. I actually even missed it. I missed that they held the count there because I was trying here. We'll pull this view up here, just in my corner window there. Yeah, I missed that the countdown stopped because I was trying to get everything ready to go, just listening in for the and then all of a sudden usually they call out the T-minus 15 seconds, then they go 10, 9, 8, 7, you know how rocket launches work. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Launch, giddy up, whatever. And all of a sudden, like, I'm talking, we're going, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's been a long time. What time? How much time do we have left? And I saw we were stopped at 18. So that's a bummer. So what they said was, all they said was ground support equipment with an ground support sensor with an out-of-family reading. Essentially, what that means is that a sensor picked up something that was wrong. So out-of-family just means that you've got, your sensors are going to measure things like, temperatures and pressures and all kinds of things like that. And if it's a, pressure sensor, for example, they have a window. Usually, it could be a really small window, could be a big window. I don't think we know what the actual window is for, individual sensors. But you have like a window of acceptable pressure there. And if the pressure is outside of that window, that's considered an out-of-family reading. You get a sensor that's read too low or too high. They call that an out-of-family reading. You're outside the range. It's a bad situation. We can't launch. Really, it's likely because of the space lobster.
Space lobster ate the T-Teb. That's the answer.
So we don't want the space lobster eating our T-Teb. So they scrubbed the launch for today. Bummer. We're Scrubtober. Scrub. It's we get United Launch Alliance has been scrubbing, like, they scrubbed how many times now? We had Starlink scrubbed. This is the second scrub for this Starlink launch. We just did that. We just scrubbed the other day for Starlink. And yeah, we can't get a rocket launch off. That's a huge disappointment, but scrubs are better than having some sort of problem. You don't want a problem, especially on this launch pad. I mean, this is where we launch Crew Dragon from. You don't want to blow up this launch pad and have all the equipment there destroyed. We wouldn't be able to launch Crew Dragon, which is coming up at the end of this month. October 31st, Halloween. We'll be launching Crew Dragon again. At least that's the current scheduled launch attempt. They could change that. Now let me go. I'm gonna pull this up here, and I want to back up to. We didn't hear anything, right? Let's see. It just stopped. So in case you missed it, here's what we had. Let's throw the replay text up, so people know this is not live. Move it over there.
Launch. Why don't we listen in to terminal count for Falcon 9 liftoff?
T-minus 30 seconds.
So we had the T-minus 30 seconds. I was getting ready. And then right there, it just stopped. Nothing, no call outs. You can hear some venting starting. That would be like an abort vent right there.
So it looks like we
Yeah,
had
so we had nothing really.
18 seconds.
Bummer. Well, I guess we're not going to space today. Well, let's look at a couple of comments. Let's see what everybody has to say here. System controlled, shutdown. Yep, so this was an automated abort from the onboard computer systems due to a ground sensor out of family reading. Will there be people abort? I'm assuming that means aboard the Crew Dragon launch on the 31st. Yes, four astronauts. That's the October 31st is the first operational mission for the Crew Dragon. Remember, we did one Crew Dragon already. That was still considered a demo mission with Bob and Doug. So the one on the 31st is the first operational mission. Basically, they're certifying it for flight, for operations, and this is basically normal operation mission number one. It's going to go up, stay up for 6 months, and come back. This is the real deal. Now it's going into regular rotation here. What does scrubbed mean? So scrubbed means basically we're not launching today. So there's a couple rocket terms. There's scrub, hold, abort, delayed. Delayed usually means that they haven't started the countdown yet, and they're going to move the launch. They're going to delay the launch. They're not going to start the countdown. A hold call it's kind of a bit of a double meaning, but hold call just means they're going to stop the clock. But usually, when I would put hold up here, that would be some implied meaning that they're going to restart the count and try again. They are not doing that today. Scrubbed means they were in the count, they stopped the count, and they are not trying again. They're done for today. They'll try again another day. And then the last one is an abort. Usually we would consider an abort something that happens while it's flying, like in flight, or even like a pad abort where they have to launch the Crew Dragon capsule out of there. That would be an abort. Or while they're in flight, having to do some sort of abort. That's kind of the terminology. But basically, scrubbed means we started the count, we stopped the count, and we're not starting it back up again today. So will cosmonauts fly on the Dragon to give back to Roscosmos? Cosmonauts will fly on the Crew Dragon eventually. At least that's the plan. I don't know if it's really to give back to Roscosmos. I mean, Russia and Roscosmos will pay for their astronauts to fly on the Crew Dragon, just like we being the United States, paid Roscosmos to fly the U.S. astronauts. So Russia wasn't flying the U.S. astronauts out of the kindness of their heart. I mean, it was nice that they let us fly on board, but we did pay them about $90 million per seat to fly astronauts to the International Space Station. Roscosmos will pay to fly their cosmonauts to the International Space Station if they fly on board the Crew Dragon. NASA and Jim Bridenstine have said that they are planning to do that. They don't have any immediate plans, it's not scheduled to a mission yet, but they are planning to put cosmonauts on the Crew Dragon, on the Boeing Starliner, and Roscosmos would have to pay whatever the price is. Price-wise, the Crew Dragon and I think the Starliner is about the same price. It's like $87 million per seat. The Crew Dragon is like $60 million per seat. Don't know if that's what Roscosmos would actually pay. They would have to negotiate that. I mean, there's nothing to say that they couldn't be like, oh, Roscosmos, you're still going to pay if you're charging us $90 million, we'll charge you $90 million. That's way above my pay grade. International relations there. So that's yet to be seen, what they'll pay, how often they'll do it. But they did say that they would allow them to fly, which would be nice for Roscosmos. In Russia, they would have a backup option in case something happened to Soyuz, although Soyuz is a pretty reliable vehicle. So, but it's always nice to have a backup. Can you please explain why on some Starlink launches they deploy the satellites 10 to 15 minutes of second stage cutoff, and the other time is much longer, like it would have been today? So they said today they were doing this longer. So the first option, where they deploy 10 to 15 minutes after launch, is an easier option, and they don't have to restart the second stage. They could likely do it with less fuel usage. I don't know that for sure, but it's just a guess. But either way, it's a little bit easier to drop them off towards the beginning of the window. You don't have to do the whole second stage restart. But if you do the second stage restart like they were planning on today, then you can get into a circular orbit, which is much easier to raise and adjust your orbit from. I mean, that's kind of like the gold standard, the ideal orbit is to be in a circular orbit, because transferring to different orbits from a circular orbit is much easier than transferring to a different orbit from an elliptical orbit. So the 10 to 15 minute drop off is a little more elliptical. It's not like a huge elliptical orbit, but it's a little more elliptical than if they do a second stage burn, they can get it a little more perfectly circular, much easier for on-orbit maneuvers, and so that's what they were going to try to do today. That also would help extend the life of the satellite, because the satellite would need to use less of its onboard fuel to get it into the proper orbit. When will this be scheduled for again? I'm gonna guess. I would get. Looking at Hojo in our Discords. Sent over a pretty funny picture of me. It's you jump on the Discord if you're not already in our Discord. Jump in the Discord, and you can see the picture that Hojo just posted in the Discord of my reaction to launch, or lack of launch, rather. And I should take the opportunity while you are all here. We'll do my ad read. It's not really an ad read, but if you like this kind of stuff and you want to support the channel, consider becoming a Patreon member. You get behind the scenes content, a little more personal interaction with me. If you like me and want to hang out with me, we kind of chat it up in our Patreon only hangout section in Discord. We got behind the scenes stuff, special live streams. I was planning on doing a Kerbal live stream for Patreon members earlier this weekend, but now we're gonna have to see if we're gonna have a launch. We might still do it anyways, but gotta see what time the launch might be. But consider supporting the channel if you like this kind of stuff. Become part of the inner circle support and join the Patreon members. Or we also have YouTube memberships as well. You can be at almost the same thing on YouTube with YouTube memberships as well. So you can hit that join button on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, there's also fan subscriptions on Facebook as well. But any of those, if you like this kind of stuff and want to help support the channel, become part of the inner circle, help with scripting any scripted videos, any sort of behind the scenes stuff that we do. I test a lot of stuff. We were testing like 360 video the other day with Patreon members, so some of that kind of stuff. Anyways, there's my spiel. Throw it out. You can consider it if it's your thing. Something to consider. All right, let's go back to the comments. That's enough of my spiel there. What will they do if Starlink gets pushed back past the 31st? Will they take the Starlink booster back and put up Crew Dragon, or will they try to launch Starlink? Well, I don't think this is going to delay that much. We're talking probably like a day or two. There's a chance they may launch Starlink tomorrow. So it either launch tomorrow or the day after, unless there's something that they have to replace, then it could be a longer extended delay. We don't really know exactly, but that's yet to be seen. But I would expect, my guess, based on nothing, is that maybe we'd see this launch on Saturday. That's going to be my guess. It could be tomorrow, but I'm going to guess Saturday. Although, we also have to see when United Launch Alliance is going to launch, because they kind of get range priority because they are a national reconnaissance payload, so they get priority over when they want to launch. So we'll have to see when they're going to reschedule too. How many times was this mission scrubbed? This one has also been scrubbed quite a bit. While it's been delayed, did we scrub before? I know we just scrubbed a couple days ago, and obviously we scrubbed today. Did we scrub before? I don't know. I feel like this one has also been a mission that hasn't wanted to go. When is it supposed to shoot off? Well, it was supposed to go about 15 minutes ago. It's scrubbed now. Not happening today. Why the launch got canceled, can you explain? So we're scrubbed today because of a out-of-family reading on a ground support sensor. Pretty sure that's what they said. So that would be part of the ground support equipment, which could be electrical equipment, could be fueling equipment, it could be hydraulic equipment, you know, any of the ground equipment not actually on the rocket itself. It was a sensor that was off of the rocket. But that's important, you know, if you have a hydraulic sensor that says you got no hydraulic, you got no hydraulic pressure, and it just happens to be on the strong back during the retract method, well, then a rocket could hit the strong back as it's trying to launch. That would be a problem. I mean, it does kind of lean back just a tiny bit, but still, they're not going to launch if things aren't perfect. So we don't know exactly what sensor it was, but it was a ground support sensor that had an out-of-family, meaning it was out of its acceptable range, an out-of-family reading. That's why they scrubbed today, and as Sebastian says, hashtag Scrubtober. We are in Scrubtober for sure. Even though all the scrubs were in September, we'll call it Scrubtober. When will the Crew Dragon do its next launch after the one on the 31st? So it's a 6-month mission, so Crew Dragon will launch on the 31st. At least that's the tentative plan right now. They'll stay up there for 6 months, and then the next one, Crew 2, will launch in like, was it March, April? Somewhere in that time frame is when Crew 2 will go. There will be no deorbitate from space today. Yep. We're not going to space today.
Space Lobster ate the T-Teb. That's the answer.
That's the answer. That is the answer. Let me see. I'm just scrolling back through a bunch of comments here. See if I missed anything. Why are your videos restricted? I can't watch on TV this way. I don't know. I didn't think they were restricted, but I'll look into that after the broadcast. I don't know why they would be restricted. If somebody knows what's happening, let me know. Let's see. Will the same Will the same crew launching on Crew 1 return on that same Dragon? Yes. Yep. So when they launch on the Dragon, that same crew will come back on the same Dragon. Hey, Dana, thanks for the super chat. Dana says, became a Patreon. That's right, Dana's one of our Patreon members. Space lobsters are being space rats. It's always the space lobster that's responsible for everything.
Lobster Fest is on.
It's the lobster's fault.
Space Lobster ate the T-Teb. That's the answer.
How many times was the second stage reused? 0. Second stage does not get reused. They have no recovery options for the second stage. The second stage, it deorberates.
It's gonna deorberate.
It deorberates, and it breaks up into a million pieces, crashes into the water, and that's it. So they do not recover the second stage. They recover the first stage, and they recover the payload fairing halves, the little clamshell nose cone up on top. They recover that. Where is the Discord link? Can't seem to find it. Can you put the link in the chat? Type !Discord in the YouTube chat, and our friend Nightbot will give you a link to Discord. And actually, here, I'll even copy and paste one into... I'll throw one in the Facebook chat as well for our Facebook members. And even one... I don't know if this works on Periscope, but I'll throw one in Periscope and in Twitch as well for anybody hanging out there. What else did we miss here before we wrap it up and end it due to this very anticlimactic launch today? Why did they scrub? It was nice weather. Yeah, weather was green. Weather was good. But we had a bad sensor. Bad sensor that said, don't do it. Don't do it. Imagine if when a sensor went off and was out of family, just the computer would light up in mission control and go, don't do it. Or even better, what's the guy from, I forget what movie it is. One of the Adam Sandler movies. The guy, isn't it like Waterboy or something? The guy that, right before launch, if everything's good, they can go, you can do it. Isn't there a guy in like Waterboy or something in the Adam Sandler movies that yells that out? When is the next launch scheduled? So the next one after this is going to be GPS 3, which is scheduled for tomorrow. Tomorrow night. Around almost 10 o'clock Eastern time. 10 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow will be the next one. Hey, Rick just joined our Patreon. Hey, Rick, thanks for joining the Patreon. Thanks for becoming part of the inner circle. Appreciate it. Make sure you connect your Discord account, and then you'll get those get access to our secret Discord channels. Macho says, bad joke. All right, you don't like my jokes. Will SpaceX make the second stage reusable, and how is that possible? No, they will not make the second stage reusable, so it is not possible. They considered it in the past, but they have pretty much abandoned that idea. So they will not make the second stage of the Falcon 9 reusable. Instead, they're going to focus on Starship, which will be a fully reusable vehicle, which eventually will replace Falcon 9 completely, because Starship will be able to launch crew and payload, and it'll be 100% reusable. So they will not. It's too difficult to recover the second stage of the Falcon 9 because it's traveling too fast, and to try to get it back to Earth while it's traveling at that speed is too difficult. So you'd have to somehow slow it down, which you don't have enough fuel to do. You would have to add parachute systems or some sort. You'd have to do some sort of landing burn on it, and then you need landing legs, and now you got all this extra weight for extra fuel and extra landing legs or a parachute system, and it's too much. It's too much. They kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but then they were like, nah, you know what? We'll focus on Starship. Well, the next launch happened tomorrow night. 2 launches tomorrow. But it's possible. It depends on when they. When they decide to reschedule Starlink for. So we're not 100% sure, but we could get 2 launches tomorrow. We don't know. Stay tuned. Jump on the Discord. This is why you jump on the Discord, because I'm sure we'll chat it up on Discord. And we'll talk about it. What makes SpaceX self-landing so special? Because they're the only ones that do it. I mean, nobody else really does it. Nobody else recovers their first stage other than SpaceX. I mean, Rocket Lab is approaching that. They're going to try, but nobody else recovers the first stage at all. They just destroy it. Gets expended, and that's a lot of money, especially like those engines. There's a lot of money. That means that SpaceX can offer their launches for cheaper, less expensive launches, which means we can do more of them. There's more money available to do more launches. So recovering the first stage, recovering the payload fairings brings down the launch cost, which means satellite providers that want to send something to orbit can do so for less money, which means they might be able to schedule more launches because they don't have to spend so much on each launch. That's what makes it special, because it's pretty awesome. Nobody else does it. Can you put a link for Discord? If you're in the YouTube chat, type !Discord. You'll get a link from our friendly Nightbot. Are you going to live stream tomorrow's launch? Yes. Yes, we will be live for GPS. GPS 3. Tomorrow. Are you streaming the resupply mission from Wallops tonight? I probably won't stream the Wallops mission tonight, but I'll be watching. Would you ride on the Starship if you had the chance? Maybe. Ask me again after it's operational, and then I'll tell you. Tana says I wore a lobster onesie costume as my Halloween, no joke, and now they're launching on Halloween. Dana, there might be some foreshadowing there. I'm just going to say, if we launch on Halloween, you might be foreshadowing, so come back here. It's already in the works. Why do government payloads, even NASA payloads, launch more on ULA when SpaceX is cheaper? Well, SpaceX is a relatively new rocket company. So even though they've been around for years, they're a relatively new company, and a lot of these contracts were awarded years and years and years ago. I mean, SpaceX has only recently been like very reliable. I mean, it's always been reliable, but in order to be considered like very reliable, like you got to have lots and lots of missions under your belt. And really, just in the last 2 years is when they've really started to ramp up the number of launches they've been doing and being able to prove their reliability. So if you remember, the Block 5 booster, which is the current iteration of their booster that they're launching now, just came about in May of 2018. Before that, they were still making changes and upgrading the rocket and still trying to tweak it and configure, get it exactly where they wanted it in order to launch national reconnaissance or super high-tech satellites that are super expensive. They don't want to see a lot of changes to the rocket. They want to know that it's on a reliable platform and that it's gonna go. So they only recently got there in May of 2018. Now, they really haven't had many problems. I mean, we had the Amos 6 problem that was back in, 2016, where it exploded on the launch pad. They had the CRS 7 problem, which was in 2015. So they had those 2 anomalies, but yeah, they were, 4 or 5 years ago. But they just became kind of a super reliable provider within the last 2 years. And those satellite contracts, launch contracts, get awarded sometimes 4, 5, 6, 10 years before it actually launches. So you will see, at least I would expect to see SpaceX start to do more and more of those now that they're in that realm, but you're probably not going to see those missions come around until 2023, 2024, 2025 in that time frame because they're awarding those contracts now to launch then. Do you work for SpaceX? No, I don't work for SpaceX. Do you think SpaceX will make it to Mars? Yes, I do. I think they will make it. I think they're very determined to do that, so. Have you ever met Elon? No, I have not met Elon. Would love to, but I have not. What was the problem here? The problem today was a ground support sensor, then out of family reading. Basically out of range. Bad reading on a ground support sensor. Not on the rocket itself, but ground equipment. What time is tomorrow's launch? Tomorrow's GPS launch is right before 10 p.m. Eastern time. Right before 10 p.m. Eastern time. It's like 9:55 p.m. Eastern time is launch. I'll be live around like 9:25 Eastern time, which is, what does that work out to be? Like 01:25 UTC? Something like that is when I'll be live tomorrow. And I guess technically it would be 2 days from now if we're talking Universal time, because it's at 1 o'clock in the morning, Universal. So, all right. Well, I think we covered it all. I think we're going to wrap up here, and we're going to say goodbye. I'm going to head over to the Discord, so if anybody wants to chat it up some more, we'll go hang out in Discord, and you can let me know your thoughts on today's no launch, our attempt. All right, but we'll do more. We got more tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed. Consider becoming part of the Inner Circle on Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Help support the channel. All that money just goes right back into the channel, whether it's cameras or microphones or lights or, you know, trying to upgrade the look so it's more entertaining, higher quality. That's what we're going for. That's the idea. So if you want to help support the channel, that's the way you can do it on Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also get you access to some secret channels in the Discord. If you're one of the top 2 tiers of the YouTube members or Patreon members, you can get access to our secret channels, chat it up a little more, get access to some secret live streams like our Kerbal live stream, which we're probably going to do this weekend. And you can also help with scripting, because we're doing a video right now that I'm trying to get out, but anyways, there's my spiel. So jump on, join the Discord. If you want to join the Discord, that's free. You can join the Discord. If you want to get access to the secret channels, you can join Patreon or become a YouTube member. Okay, everybody, that's it. I'm going to end it right there. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us today. My name's Tori. This is Overlook Horizon, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. All right, goodbye, guys. Have a good day.